What about Nick Saban's take on Bama missing the college football playoff? Was that weird? Did everyone expect it given the losses they've had? Let's take a look. Subscribe to the channel to get more Alabama news. College football is driven by passion, history, and of course, intense debates about merit and performance. When it comes to Alabama, the frustration of missing the college football playoff is something that's not just good in Tuscaloosa, but across the entire sports landscape. Nick Saban, who has long set the standard for excellence in college football, brought up a valid and relevant point: strength of schedule matters, and should matter even more. Saban's speech before and after the CFP announcement is not just a defense of his team, but a call to reflection for the future of the sport. If we don't factor in strength of schedule, is there any benefit to scheduling really good teams in the future? This question is a no-brainer. Alabama has traditionally been no stranger to challenges. Its schedule of games against Notre Dame, Ohio State, Wisconsin, and Florida State reflects the school's desire to test its limits against the best. But if strength of schedule isn't factored into the CFP's decision, what incentive would there be to continue that approach? Saban's critique is as pragmatic as it is necessary. Under the current system, a team that opts for a lighter schedule can theoretically make the playoffs with fewer scars, while teams like Alabama, which face the rigors of the SEC and a brutal schedule, pay the price for taking on bigger challenges. That's not to detract from the merits of other teams, but it does reinforce the nuance that needs to be considered. The fact that Alabama finished behind SMU, a team that has faced its own share of adversity, including a close loss to Clemson, raises further questions about how the selection criteria are applied. Yes, Alabama has lost 3 games, including unexpected stumbles against Vanderbilt and Tennessee. But there's also no denying that competing in the SEC is a challenge on a whole other level, where every week feels like a minefield. For Saban, the crux of the matter is defining what constitutes the best teams. He rightly claims that the best teams are in the playoffs, but that assertion carries a complexity. What exactly defines the best? Total wins? Quality of opponents? Recent form? Alabama's absence from the playoffs this year seems less a reflection of its ability and more a consequence of a system that still struggles to balance fairness with subjectivity. Looking ahead, Saban's comment about athletic directors is perhaps the most concerning. He could cancel all these games now, knowing the SEC is tough enough, the coach said. It's a scenario no one wants, but it's unfortunately plausible. If the value of strength of schedule continues to be secondary, programs may opt for strategies that prioritize results over quality of competition. This would be a huge loss for college football, and especially for its fans. While this season has been disappointing for Alabama fans, there is no doubt that the team will come back stronger under Kalen DeBoer, who is already beginning to shape the future of the program. But Saban's words are a reminder that as teams adapt, the system must evolve as well. After all, the ultimate goal is not just to crown a champion, but to preserve the essence of college football, a sport built on rivalries, grit, and the relentless pursuit of greatness. And no one embodies that better than Alabama. Let's keep going. College football has changed dramatically with the introduction of NIL, and the impact of this new era is undeniable. NIL agreements have transformed the game into an even more competitive field, but they have also brought with them a series of challenges and consequences that are shaping the future of the sport. And when it comes to Alabama, one of the most iconic and dominant programs in college football, we cannot ignore how NIL has influenced its recent dynamics. With an impressive fund of nearly $16 million raised for the 2023-2024 season, Alabama continues to be a powerhouse in recruiting and talent development. However, even with this financial backing, the team missed out on the college football playoff this year, something almost unthinkable for a team that was led by the legendary Nick Saban and now by up-and-coming coach Kalen DeBoer. Unexpected losses to Vanderbilt, Tennessee, and Oklahoma have put Alabama out of contention, but what is truly striking is how the larger NIL landscape is shaping these storylines. Crimson Tide quarterback Jalen Milroe was blunt when he talked about the benefits of NIL. He highlighted how these partnerships have opened doors not only financially, but also in terms of networking and opportunities for players. And that's true. NIL has democratized athletes' access to resources that were previously unimaginable, allowing talent to directly benefit from their skills and notoriety. However, as Nick Saban has pointed out in recent statements, this new reality also brings significant challenges, especially when it comes to player development and the integrity of the recruiting process. Alabama's case is not isolated. The current college football landscape is rife with stories of broken promises, lawsuits, and financial disputes involving NIL agreements. The story of Jaden Rashada, for example, highlights the risks of false promises. Lawsuits against Billy Napier and a Gators booster show how NIL can quickly turn into a nightmare for players and programs. And when UNLV quarterback Matthew Sluka left the team after a transfer agreement fell through, it became clear that the lack of regulation and consistency in the NIL could create instability for both athletes and teams. For Alabama, the challenge is to continue adapting to this new normal. The program is still one of the most respected and well-funded in the country, but it now faces a landscape in which success depends not only on performance on the field, but also on careful management of the NIL. The pressure to compete in an environment where large sums of money are at stake requires a strategic and ethical approach, something Nick Saban has emphasized throughout his career. At the same time, there are legitimate concerns about how the NIL could impact the future of college football as a whole. The SEC, for example, is already notoriously competitive, but the NIL introduces an additional layer of complexity. For Alabama, this year's playoff exclusion is a clear sign that even the biggest powerhouses are not immune to the changes in the sport. Looking ahead, the Crimson Tide has all the resources to bounce back and get back on top. With Kalen DeBoer at the helm and a continued commitment to excellence, Alabama can navigate the turbulent waters of the NIL and maintain its position as one of the great forces in college football. But the question remains, is the sport prepared to balance the opportunities and challenges that the NIL brings? Here's to Bama's success. A possible transfer at Bama? Movements in the transfer portal are a fact of life in modern college football, and the Alabama Crimson Tide, led by Kalen DeBoer, are facing a transition. On Sunday, the team received news that rookie wide receiver Caleb Odom will enter the transfer portal, adding another chapter to a season already marked by ups and downs. Did you see that? For Alabama fans, Odom's departure could be seen as a blow to the depth of a department that was already undergoing adjustments. The young athlete arrived as a promising prospect, ranked as the number 53 prospect in the country in the 2024 class and the second-best tight end in the cycle, but was moved to wide receiver upon joining the program. Despite his recognized talent, his 7 receptions for 65 yards this season suggest that perhaps the adaptation to the new role has not been as fluid as expected. Odom's departure is not an isolated case. He joins Kobe Prentice and Kendrick Law, 2 other wide receivers who have also announced their intentions to transfer. The Crimson Tide's total players in the portal this season now stands at 7, a statistic that may seem alarming at first glance. However, that number partly reflects the new dynamics of college football, where the quest for playing time and more immediate opportunities is causing many young players to reconsider their paths. Kalen DeBoer is in his first year at Alabama and is already faced with the challenge of managing sky-high expectations while navigating a competitive and changing landscape. The absence of the college football playoff this season was a blow to a program accustomed to the top. Still, DeBoer has shown an admirable ability to adapt and adjust his strategies, both on and off the field. From a recruiting standpoint, Alabama continues to attract elite talent, with players like Vodney Cleveland bolstering the program's future. The departure of Odom and others could open up opportunities for new prospects to get a chance to shine sooner. Additionally, DeBoer and his staff have a history of leveraging the transfer portal to find talent ready to contribute immediately, an approach that could be crucial to keeping the team competitive. This requires patience and trust in the process. While the loss of an athlete with Caleb Odom's potential is unfortunate, it's important to remember that the success of a program like Alabama isn't built on individual talent alone, but on the strength of its structure, culture, and ability to renew itself. DeBoer is building a team that reflects his vision, and adjustments like these are a natural part of that process. The transfer portal is just another arena where the Crimson Tide can prove its resilience and adaptability. Let's move on. An honest take from Nick Saban on Bill Belichick coming to college football. College football legend Nick Saban is never one to shy away from a straightforward and honest analysis, especially when it comes to someone in his inner circle like Bill Belichick. With a friendship that dates back to their days with the Cleveland Browns, where Saban served as defensive coordinator under Belichick, the two have more than a mutual respect for each other. They share a unique strategic view of the game. In an interview with the Pat McAfee Show, Saban offered a measured assessment of whether Belichick, currently head coach of the New England Patriots, would consider a move to college football. Bill is an excellent coach. He's very well organized. He's a good teacher, Saban said. Those words carry weight coming from someone who understands better than anyone the complexities of coaching young athletes and building a winning program in a competitive environment like college football. Saban also highlighted the main difference between college football and the pros: recruiting. For Belichick, accustomed to a system where players are signed and traded based on contracts and trades, the idea of selling a program to young players and their families may seem like unfamiliar territory. But as Saban suggested, recent changes in college football, such as NIL, name, image, likeness, and the transfer portal, make the scenario more akin to running an NFL franchise. It becomes a little bit more about the money and the deal you make with them, so it's a little bit more like professional football, he said. Belichick's potential move to college raises intriguing questions. With 15 wins separating him from Don Shula's record as the winningest coach in NFL history, Belichick has a clear motivation to stay in the league and cement his legacy. But the opportunity to mold young talent in a college environment and compete in a completely different format could be a chance to revitalize his career and explore new challenges. In some ways, Belichick's success in college football seems inevitable. His tactical knowledge, team-building skills, and reputation as a disciplinarian would make him a force in recruiting and developing players. But the question remains, would he be willing to trade the NFL grind for one that requires constant travel, family reunions, and the constant pressure of winning titles in an environment where the margins for error are even slimmer? Nick Saban seems to believe that Belichick could not only make the transition, but thrive. That confidence is a reflection not only of the friendship between the two, but also of their mutual respect for their abilities as leaders and strategists. For the college football world, the mere prospect of Belichick joining would be a seismic event, shifting the balance of power in whatever conference he decides to settle in. If Belichick does decide to make the transition, it would be a historic moment, and college football will be more than ready to welcome him. After all, as Saban suggested, in a sport that now more closely mirrors the professional world, few would be as well equipped to adapt and lead as Bill Belichick. What do you think? I want to hear from you.